everybody's having a great day, and if not, I hope it gets better for you. So, since I still can't stream because the internet's all messed up, I'm going to do another video, and this time I'm going to do Farming Simulator. If we can get things to work here. And doesn't seem to want to pick it up. So let me try this again. No, it don't look like it's gonna do it. So, shit. Oh, there it goes. Finally started working. Oh, I waited till it loaded in. That was the problem. I'm gonna go with what the. I gotta remember the controls for it because it's been a while since I've played. This is a mod map, No Man's Land. Oh, by the way, I checked No Man's Sky the other day, and it's getting close to the whole community thing being completed. So once that's done, I'll try to get that last video out on that. Seems to be a little laggy for some reason. Normally I don't have problems with this game, so I'm not sure. Maybe it's because I got OBS running. Might be the reason. Usually what I do at the beginning is sell pretty much everything and buy new stuff. But I figure I might just try to use what's here for the time being. Which I also wanted to apologize for the little rant in the last videos. I know it was a little aggressive, but sometimes there's certain things that just get really under my skin. And one of them is people trying to dictate how me and a lot of other people live, particularly when it's based off of information that is either wrong or is only partial information or whatever. And another thing that kind of gets under my skin is when people attack something like cows, like farming, claiming it causes all this environmental damage. Yet we got thousands of planes flying in the sky every day. We got an island of plastic floating in the middle of the ocean. But rather than address those problems, they want to tell everybody, oh, you have to stop eating beef. No. It's just that simple. No. But honestly, it's not. I don't think most of the people pushing it, I think some of them are just misguided. But I think particularly the ones who, uh, are in the business world, who have a lot of money, who have certain power, I bet you money they're not doing that because they care about the environment. I guarantee you that they're doing that because there's money involved. There's profit to be had. Because as we know, there are certain people that push that agenda who own more farmland, at least in the US, than anybody else. And they're also heavily invested in lab grown meat and lab grown butter. Not going to say exactly who, but I'm sure you know who. I don't even have to say. And I imagine a lot of the others involved in pushing that agenda are probably heavily invested in things like solar, electrical, wind generators, things like that. And that's why they're also pushing for more of that. But yeah. Anyway, that's kind of why I got quite a bit heated in the last video and went on that little rant. I know that's not what people watch me for. They watch me to kind of forget about the problems of the world and relax and have a little fun, maybe a few laughs. But like I say, some things just kind of get under my skin and I feel I need to address them, so I do. Although I don't know that anybody would listen to me, and that's fine. I'm not saying anybody has to listen to me. I'm not saying anybody has to take my advice. Or, I don't know if you'd really call it advice or not, but you kind of get what I mean. But sometimes I get frustrated because it's like I can see how things could be better for most people, if not everybody, if a lot of people, particularly those who have money and power, who believe that they are more intelligent than everyone else and have moral superiority over everyone else, when they keep interfering in everybody's lives. If people would just mind their business and work to come to agreements on certain things instead of trying to force their views on everybody else, or uh, just like I saw this one interview, this guy who runs one of the big financial companies talking about forcing behavior. To some extent, yeah, we do need to force behavior, but not in the way he was talking about. As in, the way we do need to do it is when it comes to criminality. Because for a society to function well, you need a high trust society. And, it's kind of hard to do that when you allow people to take advantage of others and steal from others and even worse things, which I won't go into. But it's things you see in the news all the time. But yeah, sometimes I see that and it frustrates me. It makes me sad to see how things could be. But anyway, and well, I guess this is the first video I've made since the 4th, because I've been doing some stuff around the house and doing some other stuff. Plus, I was struggling to figure out what game I wanted to play on the next video. Because I did do that one Conan video where I used my stream save, but I really don't like doing that. I'd rather save those for stream. But, it could be another few weeks, maybe even a little longer before I'm able to get my internet squared away, because information right now is a little hard to come by, apparently. But anyway, excuse me. Uh, so I would rather save that for stream. So, but I hope everybody, at least that celebrates 4th of July, I hope y'all had a fun and safe 4th of July. And it's kind of a special one since America is 250 years old this year. I was thinking about that the other day. I was 2 years old when the USA turned 200 years old in 1976, the bicentennial. I was 2 years old. As I remember there being a lot of American themed stuff, and I remember my parents had an eagle. I don't know if that was part of it or what, but I remember they had this eagle that was the body of it was wood and the wings were brass. And I remember those wings being really sharp because I kind of nicked myself on them a few times touching the thing, which I shouldn't have been touching it. But, kids, they like to touch things and whatever. And I think I've still got a bunch of the bicentennial quarters around here somewhere. As I used to keep them. Of course, I don't know if you run across many of them anymore, but used to see them all the time. Even up into the 90s, if I remember right, you still used to see them quite often. But yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to play Farming Simulator for this video, because I did want to kind of go over that a little bit. Because I support farmers. Now, there is an asterisk to that, and that farmers that feel the need to use uh, nothing but chemical fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides and farmers that have those packed in feedlots and things. I don't necessarily support them because that's really not the way it should be done. It's it's not good for the land or the animals, and it's not really good for us. But I saw recently that they're doing some stuff in government to kind of promote and push regenerative farming, which I am very in favor of. I think regenerative farming is not only good for the farms, it's good for the environment, it's good for us, because it's kind of going back to the way nature intended things and the way nature works itself. And to me, that is more environmentally friendly than a bunch of damn solar panels covering up a bunch of land that could otherwise be used for something else, or a bunch of windmills taking up a lot of space. Because, I mean, I don't claim to be an expert on regenerative farming or anything, but I understand the basics of it. You take what nature provides and you use it to improve things. You improve the soil using natural fertilizers like manure, and that could be either manure from livestock or green manure, which is just basically mulch, or something like in Farming Simulator, where you can plant certain crops that you don't harvest, you just plow them in and it creates fertilizer, and that's considered green fertilizer. And I know there are a lot of farmers that have been kind of going back to that. I know there's a lot of small hobby farmers that do that. And there's some larger commercial farms that do that. But it would be nice to see the majority of farming move to that. See, it's like with the cow thing. See, people, while they claim that cows are so dangerous, despite everything else that's, causing problems environmentally. See, cows generate manure, which is a natural fertilizer. It feeds the natural ecosystem of the soil, and it helps the grass that they graze on to grow better, which actually captures carbon. Plus, humans can't digest grass. And there are some places where you can't grow crops that we can digest, but you can grow grass. So the cows can eat the grass, and then we eat the cows. We get nutrients from the cows. Because the human body is designed to get nutrients from both plants and animals. We are omnivores. We were designed that way biologically. Like bears. Bears are omnivores. Plenty of other critters that are omnivores as well. But nature, has had way longer than humans have to figure out how things ought to work. Now, granted, it doesn't always get it right. Sometimes it works against itself, and sometimes things happen that, messes up the balance or things just go wrong. But it often corrects itself as well. So what was I going? Yeah, this. I need a stone picker. I've got 100,000. That's 100. That's 200. That's 120. How much horsepower does this tractor have? Can go here to the garage and look and see. It's got 135 horsepower. So I think the smallest one's going to be the only one I can use because that's 100, 200. I could use that, but it's awful close. I'll get this one because it's cheaper anyway. Which also, regenerative farming is kind of how things have been done by humans for most of the time that humans have been farming. Because, of course, we didn't have chemical fertilizers, chemical uh, herbicides, pesticides. Yet we still managed to farm and feed people. And I think that's the way it ought to be done because, like I say, in the end, it's better for the environment, it's better for the ecosystem, it's better for the farmer, it's better for the consumer because doing it that way, you get a more natural, healthier product. And if you do it right and you don't go picking it before it's ripe and using that whatever kind of gas it is they use to force it to ripen, if you don't do all that shit, then you get the full benefits of the nutrients. So for that, we need to think about the logistics of farming and how that's done. But you've got too many of these large food companies and everything. They just, import all kinds of stuff from wherever. They don't care where it comes from. A lot of these places don't have the same regulations that the U.S. does, so they might use chemicals or something that might be banned here. Of course, there's a lot of chemicals that are not banned here that should be, in my opinion. And I think more needs to be done on that. I think the government has kind of dropped the ball on that. And of course, there's a few VTubers I watch that do that. And if you want to know more about it, there's plenty of information out there. Plenty of people on YouTube that do it. Now, some of them may have a few things wrong or whatever. Some of them, but a lot of them get it right. There's one I share a lot of her clips and stuff on X sometimes. What's her name? Chloe something and Greens. I forget the exact name of her channel now. Uh, she's from Ireland. She's Irish. Lives in Ireland. Does a lot of farming stuff. And it's neat because she explains how she does things, why she does things, and the reasoning behind it and what benefit it has. There's another feller from North Carolina, Stony Ridge Farmer. I watch him quite a bit. He's basically bought a farm that had been left neglected for some time, I think, and was pretty overgrown, and he's been bringing it back to life, trying to use sort of natural methods and stuff. Unfold. This one's a little tricky because it kind of runs to the side. Lower and turn on. Back the camera up a little bit so I can see the behind the machine. So I can see if there's any stone left behind. But that's the thing, and things don't have to go to waste either. Like, I've seen plenty of people talk about how after they harvest the crops from their garden, they will take any of the scrap plant material that's left and feed it to their chickens or their other livestock. Or they'll leave parts of it and not necessarily till it into the soil, but work it into the soil to act as a little bit of a green manure kind of thing. Using mulch to help suppress weeds and such. Learning, because I know there's this whole sort of science behind like planting certain crops together can be very beneficial. Um, and there's also, insects that will um, predate on any harmful insects that might come into your garden. There's like ladybugs. I think ladybugs eat aphid larvae, I think, if I remember right. And there's other such thing. And then, of course, there's also bees that help pollinate everything. There's worms and things that, keep the soil loosened up and all that kind of stuff. And I think if you take the time to learn the ways that nature can balance itself out that way, with, certain insects that won't harm your crops, getting rid of insects that will harm your crops. There's birds that can help. Bats can be beneficial in that way as well. Although you do have to be kind of careful with bats because I think they're a bit susceptible to like rabies and stuff. And then of course you got bees, which can be pollinators. There's also some birds like hummingbirds that can be pollinators. Uh, might be some other insects. I think there might be like a moth or something. Butterflies. Some butterflies I think are pretty good pollinators. And then, like with that Irish woman I was talking about, one thing she uses as mulch is sheep's wool, because apparently there's a lot of sheep farmers in her area, and apparently they can't make that much off the wool, or they have a lot of wool that maybe is not quite up to grade as far as being able to sell it. So she takes that and then uses it as a mulch because it both holds moisture in, it insulates the ground and the young plants to keep them warm when the weather gets a little bit cold early in the spring and stuff. But of course, she could explain a lot better than I can if you're interested in watching her. But see, I'm old enough that I remember, when pretty much everything came in glass or metal containers, you know, like all the pop came in glass bottles. A lot of your condiments and things like that all came in glass bottles or jars. Uh, Milk is probably one thing that, as far as I can remember, always came in plastic jugs. I know they used to sell milk in glass bottles, but I think they might have switched to plastic jugs early on for that because I don't really remember getting milk in glass bottles. Not saying that it didn't still exist during the time I was growing up, I just don't remember it. And I think also, spreading farms out and, having grocery stores and things source as much locally as they can and things like that. Now, granted, I know some stuff, if you want to get it, excuse me, out of season, would have to come from somewhere, but There's places in this country where some stuff could be grown year round, and of course, you could also uh, use things like temperature control greenhouses and such. Because I know there's a lot of stuff that's grown out of season in California. I imagine you could probably do the same in parts of Florida, maybe Texas. But I think a lot of the misinformation that's out there about a lot of things comes from the atomic age, back in like the 40s and 50s, when a lot of new stuff was coming about, a lot of chemicals and things people coming up with. And I think in a push to find a market for those, they spread a lot of misinformation about things and still do. And I think things like that are way worse. We got these forever chemicals. We got the accusations of the cloud seeding and stuff. Of course, there's some evidence to support that that's actually going on. And I've seen quite a few articles talking about aluminum contamination in the soil and stuff, which is really messing with ecosystems and things. But I think we need to take more lessons from nature when it comes to that stuff instead of uh, some millionaire that owns a business that benefits from whatever the most recent environmental fad is, or some college professor or whatever. So that's one thing I think is an advantage for kids who grow up in rural areas, especially if they grow up on a farm or even on just a small homestead with just like maybe a handful of chickens and a vegetable garden, is they get to grow up beside that and with it and learn from it as they grow up. So they get a good feel for it, a good understanding for it. Which personally, I think we should completely rethink how school is done. I think, of course, it is very important to do math and science and English and all of the typical stuff. As far as like a lot of the, I'll just say, ideologies that seem to be prevalent now need to just go from regular schools. And I think there needs to be uh, more focus on things like finances, personal finances, cooking. Bring back home ec. Teach people some basic cooking skills. Uh, some basic farming or gardening skills, enough to get, you don't have to teach them how to take care of every kind of farm animal or anything, but just give them something like maybe chickens or goats or something simple that would teach the basics that they could then use as a baseline if they wanted to learn more. But, according to a lot of teachers on the internet, apparently we got a lot of students these days that can't even really read, so, or at least not nowhere near the level that they should be reading. And I think that kind of shows as well when you go on social media. It seems like there are a lot of people who are uh, functionally illiterate in that they can read something and completely misunderstand it, even in context. Because I see that kind of often. But, let's see. I need to go to this menu. Yeah. So I want to get rid of this. I don't think I get any money back for any of this stuff. Select. Yeah. Because since it already exists here, I don't get anything for it. That I'll leave. This. Let me see how much a new one would be first. I want to get a multi-fruit one or whatever that will hold pretty much everything. Because I want to dump these stone in there because I've got, there might be one in the game, but I think I have a mod for a tool that will turn it into limestone, which you need to put on fresh land, which I'll probably just have to buy it for now, which I ain't got a whole lot of money. Of course, I also got some nice little things that I could put down to give me some extra money. Uh, no, another thing I forgot to do was go in and change the settings, but I can worry about that later. Get this done first, and then I can do that. Because I always like change the time to normal time. I think the default setting is like 5 times normal time. I like to set it to normal time just because I like to have plenty of time to do what I need to do and everything. Okay, now we're getting into the multi-fruit silos. So we got large silo, which holds 20 million for 50,000. We got a medium one that holds 15 million liters for 30,000. So we got medium and large, but no small. Interesting. Small red barn silo. It doesn't say it's multi-fruit. It's 100,000 liters and 200 pieces. But 200 pieces of what? Hay? What? It doesn't say. But it's 50,000. And these are, now we're getting into specialized. Alright, I guess I'll just get this $30,000 one here. I got 75,000 left. So, let me get rid of this. I'll do this one. Oh, wrong button. And just slap it down right in the same spot. Place A. There we go. So now I should be able to dump this stone in there. Yep. There's not much of it, but as I'm probably, until I grow a lot bigger, I'm probably just going to have to buy stuff like lime and whatever. Let's see. Shit, I have to. No, let's go in and change the settings while I'm thinking of it. Let's see. Help window on. Units, money, dollar, miles, temperature, Fahrenheit, acres, radio off. Okay, I think it's the next window. Oh, maybe not. Where the fuck is all of the... Excuse me. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's the autosave interval. I'll put that to 5 minutes. Here's the time. I'll go to real time. Easy on seasonal growth. I'm going to turn that off. I mean, that's good if you want to do, more immersive gameplay and stuff. I just like having fun. No. Fixed vision month, snow. I'm gonna turn snow off. Crop destruction off. That's already off. That's on. Yeah, I'll leave it on. Fuel usage low. All this set to buy. Let's change this. And I'll just name it VigiSave. Alright, let's see. I don't really have any room in there. But, let's see. Alright, let me go back to the map. And let's look at... So that's cultivated. What we have here needs lime. So yes, I'm going to have to go get me a fertilizer spreader. I'm just going to park this thing over here for the time being. Because luckily, one thing you ain't got to worry about is, leaving stuff outside, because you ain't got to worry about rusting or whatever. You do got to repair things every now and then, which can get expensive. So, just to kind of help out with that, I go into construction, go to production, I can go to generators, and here's all the nice stuff that will make me some money. Let's see, it tells you how much it makes you. So that's 648 per month, which I've got the month set to 7 days. So over 7 days, it would make that much. That I can't afford. That's 984 mile. Can't afford none of these. Now this one, don't call it. This is kind of a cheap one here. So is this one. This one's just a little bit less of a cheat. I think there's also some you can get that will actually take money away from you ever so often. So I guess maybe if you use one of these to start with and you start accruing a little bit more money than you wanted to, you use one of those others to take some of it away. Or if you're doing like I've seen some YouTubers who play this do like role plays and stuff, so they need to adjust how much money they have. So they can use those to kind of adjust that. But I'll grab this one. Because, since we're in no man's land, there is kind of from my understanding, there's kind of a backstory to this map that, it's a place that was left to overgrow, but you kind of see all the equipment's kind of run down and everything's overgrown. There's trees everywhere. There's also an orchard on another part of the map that's like dead and overgrown, and that you're kind of here to revitalize things and bring it back. So it would kind of make sense that you get a little bit of a subsidy, you know. Oh, so I need some sort of fertilizer spreader that can do lime. I think that at the dealership, I think I can buy like manure or slurry or one of the natural fertilizer. So I'm gonna try to do that. I'm gonna try to keep it natural. And I think there's some weeders that don't use spray that you just drag across the ground and it takes the weeds out. I don't know that I can afford to get all that stuff yet, so but we'll see what we can get here. Which I also have to keep in mind that my tractor only has 135 horsepower. Because let's see what we got as far as weeders. Yeah, so you have all of these. Take 60, 140, 90. That does 9 meters. That does 6 meters, which 6 meters ain't bad considering the size field that I have. But let's look at the fertilizer spreaders and see. Is this one, according to the little icon, only does fertilizer because it's got the little bag with the green leaf on it? And this one has lime but that one's expensive and big. So let's see what other choices we have. These are made to go on the back of the vehicles, which I don't currently have. Okay, so this one does both, has a 10-meter spread. Of course, I could also plant it's some kind of beet. I forget now what they call it. But I'm going to get this to spread the lime. It's fine. I don't need to change anything. But now I know that thing runs out of lime really fast, so what I can do Let's see, I will drop my front weight back in here. I will grab my trailer back here. Don't know how much this one holds. That's one gripe that I have about this particular version of Farming Simulator is they've got so many different ways of measuring how much a trailer holds, and I can't find any real consistency with it, and some of it I have no idea how much it holds. Excuse me. But what I can do is take this over here. I'll pick up the spreader I just bought, and I'll fill both it and this trailer full of lime if I got enough money. And then what's in the trailer I can put in my silo so that I can just go to my silo to refill the thing instead of having to come drive all the way back over here every time, because I'll probably have to refill it 2 or 3 times just on this small field if this is the one that I'm thinking of, which I believe it is. And then I might need to get seed as well. And I might have to buy a manure spreader with some manure or a slurry spreader with some slurry. Which, if I remember right, last time I used slurry on this particular version of Farming Simulator, it's kind of hard to tell where you spread it and where you ain't because of the way it looks. Of course, I can always look at the map, kind of figure it out. Let's see, I think I attach from this side. That's an advantage to having a tractor with a front 3-point hitch on it. There's a lot of times what I'll do when I start a map, most any map on here, is all the equipment that it gives you to start with, I sell it all. And then I take that money, buy cheaper stuff so that I have extra money to buy some other stuff that I need. Like some of this stuff and like seed and fertilizer or whatever. So this holds 12,400 liters. Which this tractor is in desperate need of repairs. Which apparently the effectiveness of certain things can go down if it's in need of, oh shit, in need of repairs. I just realized here I am an hour into this and I had the damn game muted. Well, I am not gonna re-record all of that, so I'll just leave it be. which I've done that numerous times in streams anyway, so it's nothing exactly new for me. So now I'm down to 37,123. I really need some diesel fuel too. Which I do have a mod for a little diesel pump that I can place down here and use it to fill up with. I still have to pay for the diesel, but I usually get that and put it right next to this building here, because this is the workshop where I make the repairs at. So I can unload. Ah, fuck. That ain't what I wanted to do because I had the wrong thing. But that's okay. I can pick it back up, I do believe. Nice and gentle like. Takes time though. Actually, I'm just going to leave this thing out here too. See, just like that, I can refill it. Now, while I've got that off, let me see if I got enough to do the repairs needed to this thing. Need to give it a bath too. That's not important as making sure it's all working correctly. Repair $5,937. Yes. Paint condition doesn't matter, because eventually I'll replace this tractor anyway with something with a bit more horsepower, so that I can use bigger attachments. A lot of times I'll use, I'll hire a driver to hire a worker to do this, because it's easier to keep straight lines and everything, but can't really afford to do that, so. And it looks like I'm missing a tiny strip on the side here, but got a little crooked there. That's alright. I'll get it mostly covered anyway. See, it's already out. Not even one full damn strip. And this thing's already run out of stuff. So if I hadn't brought that trailer full back, you can see I would have had to made several trips up to the dealership. Let's see, I think what I'll do is do a strip going this way. That said there, I don't have access to this land because this field is right dead on the property line. Which sometimes what I'll do is use the paint tool and fill in like a row or so of that edge of the field. So I have run into problems a few times with it while trying to use certain implements or something. It will pop up and say you don't have access to this field, and it won't do the thing I need it to do. So usually when I start buying extra land, that's usually the first piece I buy is that one there. Usually buy the one on either side of it first. Which I've already got one on this map that I play on when I'm just playing on my own off stream or whatever. There goes my throat again. Excuse me. Which I ain't worried about getting perfect coverage as long as the majority of it is covered. Oh shit, I bet it'll need rolling too. And I'm gonna go ahead and go back over here and fill it up again. What I might do is might be rapeseed. I can't remember. It's changed depending on which version of the game you have, whether it be 17, 19, 22. I'm guessing it might be the same for 25. I don't know. It seems like each time they've changed the crop that you plant. For fertilizing it. Which, honestly, I don't know if they even had anything before 17 specifically for that. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to question if 17 had some. I think it did, but maybe not. I know 19 did. I want to say it was a beet, some sort of beet for 19 that you planted, but I don't know. Which it's kind of funny because I bought Farming Simulator 17 and then I bought 22 here, but I didn't get 19, and 19 is kind of my favorite one, which of course I got them when they were on sale, and I think when I got 17 I was kind of going back and forth as to whether to get it or 19, and I ended up going with 17, but I could only afford one of them because I got 22 at a different time. Of course it was on sale then, but I mainly got it for streaming. Although I think I did stream 17 a time or two. I can't remember now. Oh, there's the helicopter. It flies over every now and then. I'm going to put this over here. Because I know it doesn't need to be undercover. Because the rain doesn't actually do anything to it like it would RL. But I got room over there to put it, so. And maybe that's where I can keep that stuff. Tell you what, before I buy any other equipment, let me take this thing over here and buy some seed to put in this silo here, because it will hold seed as well. Oh, let me check. So it's just showing, it's not showing it needs rolling. So maybe it doesn't. Right, so let me go get seed, which the seeder might have some in it already, I don't know. But I'm sure I'll need more anyway, so I'll go get that. And I'll probably just figure out which one is the green manure plant and just plant that for now. And then once I get a little money from that sign that I put down there, then maybe I can get a little bit more equipment and plant an actual crop I can make some money from. Which that's always been one of my, not really a complaint, because there are some methods, but like you do have the manure spreader and the slurry spreader and that kind of stuff. But early in game, it's kind of hard to get into that because it is kind of expensive, and you often have to buy the manure or the slurry because you don't have the animals to produce it. And it tends to be quite expensive. I think there are some mods that can get around that, but actually it's not that expensive because I've bought bags of cow manure before, and they're relatively cheap. So I forget now what I even bought it for. It was something I was doing. It's been several years ago though. But which I would love to go out and plant stuff and do stuff, but seed. Seeds. That's going to be expensive. I might not even get a full trailer. It's at 12,100 liter. A while ago I thought it was at 12.4, so that could be because the trailer needs repairs, because yeah, I've got the trailer selected and it's showing it's in desperate need of repairs as well. So I'm guessing it doesn't hold as much if it's in need of repairs. But yeah, at least for this year, I am quite hesitant to go outside because of all the reports about the Lone Star ticks and the alpha gal bullshit. all that going around because, I was talking about that guy I watch, Stony Ridge, who has that farm in North Carolina. He apparently got that alpha guy. I saw a video a while back of him talking about that. Now, apparently, it's something that you can get over, but it takes time. I think he said something about 2 or 3 years, maybe. I don't remember exactly, but still, to have to go without beef or dairy for that long, I'd lose my fucking mind. Because I eat all kinds of butter. I like milk, cheese, and beef is my favorite meat. I think you can't eat pork either. I think chicken or other bird meat, fish, I think you can still eat. But you can't have any dairy like milk, butter, cheese. I'd lose my fucking mind. Which I've also seen a few reports, and of course, I don't know that there's any proof of any of it going on, but I did see some reports that there were people claiming to find boxes of Lone Star ticks on their property. Which another thing is, part of my property is overgrown, so it's probably prone to ticks. Although, admittedly, I have not seen any ticks, which usually around here we get deer ticks. I don't think I've ever seen any other kind of tick besides a deer tick around here. But, it has been, now that I think of it, quite a long time since I've even seen a tick. But still, I do not want to take any chances on getting that down alpha gal bullshit. Which honestly, and I don't know whether there's any truth to any of it or not, but I know there's speculation and reports that there could be, like I say, there could be people dropping ticks into places or, whatever, and that there's people that intentionally modified ticks with the alpha gal to spread them around. Now, like I say, I have no idea if there's any truth to that or not. I've just, heard people mention it and whatever. But I think if it was ever, that's it, oilseed radishes for this one. But I think it should be investigated, though. And I think if come to find out that that was the case, I think whoever's responsible for that, they need to rot in a cell somewhere. Because I think anybody that experiments on the public without the public knowing about it or volunteering for it needs to rot in a cell for life. I don't give a damn if it's a government or whoever it is. They need to be put in the box. Oh, this thing's struggling with this. No, that's not what I want. I wanted to lift it. Don't need to turn it off, just need to lift it off of the ground while I turn around here. But I would love to, if I had the energy, the time, and the money for the equipment that I would need to be able to do it, because a lot of the stuff I can't do by hand because bad knees, bad back, I'm always tired, and what have you. But I would love to have a big old garden, and I'd like to have at least a small greenhouse. A few fruit trees. I got one grapevine, but I'd like to have one or two more. And I've got, like I say, I've got 4 walnut trees. Although one of them doesn't really produce walnuts anymore because it's old. And I got 2, they're called sweet chestnuts when I ordered them from a seed catalog. I think they're like a Chinese chestnut or something, because they're supposed to be resistant to the blight that took out a lot of the American chestnuts. But I got 2 of those. Yet to see any nuts on them yet, which they're growing like weeds right now, because over the last several years they went from being like a foot high to now they're probably 15, maybe even 20 foot high. Well, probably not 20, but they're close to 15 anyway. And full and bushy. Got limbs all the way down to the ground, basically. And I ain't seen no nuts or nothing on them yet, but maybe in a few more years we'll start getting some. Should be nice. Only bad thing is all them damn thorny husks they'll leave on the ground. Plus I gotta make sure I get to them before the worms do. Because worms do love the chestnuts. Which, here a while back, I think I might have mentioned it on stream, but I know I posted something about it on X, that I saw a bear in my backyard. Apparently one of my neighbors saw a bear on their deck. I'm guessing it was probably the same bear. So, but that's the first time I've ever seen a bear, at least as far as I can remember, anywhere, in my yard or a neighbor's yard or wherever. And that's in how many years? About 49, 48, 49 years, I think. See deer quite a bit. Groundhogs, squirrels. Possum. I've seen a possum or two. Most possums I've seen though were grease spots in the road. So I know there for a few years after I got my license, seemed like damn near every country road you went on, there was at least one or two possum that had been hit by a car. I ain't seen none in a long time though. Of course, you hear a lot of coyotes and stuff around here for the last several years too, so that could have something to do with it. Though I've noticed since I saw that bear, I ain't heard the coyotes yelping at night anymore. Which the other day I saw 3 deer in the backyard. Of course, I'd never seen or heard coyotes around here until maybe 20 years ago. Was the first time I even heard of one being around here. As a feller that's got a farm a couple miles down the road here. I was talking to him one day, and he was saying he'd seen some on his farm down there. And then I think it was a couple times after that I saw one or two maybe in the field across the road from my house at different times. And then there for a while, a few years, up until I guess up until a couple months ago maybe. I'd often hear them yelping at night and stuff around here. Now, I've never seen one in the yard, but I have heard them nearby. But yeah, I would like to do a lot of stuff. I'd like to have a few critters too, like a few chickens, maybe a few goats or something. I ain't got enough room for a cow or anything like that, but although according to this one book I got, I could do a cow on the amount of land I got, but I would have to set like a quarter of the land aside for grazing for the cow. Plus, I would pretty much have to feed it year round, at least. Supplementary during the year when the grass grows, so I would still have to supplement with food then, and then of course during the winter I'd have to feed them pretty much all the time. That could get expensive, but there are things I can still do though, which I've seen a lot of advertisements recently for a flail mower that is radio controlled. Oh, what I could do with one of those. There's a lot of the overgrown parts of my property I could clean up probably rather quickly with one of those. Maybe even in like a day or two. Of course, I might have to go in and do a little bit of pre-cleanup because I know there's some spots where there's some rocks. There's some stumps in some areas too. Of course, they're small stumps, so it might be okay with the flail mower. Because when I tried cleaning it off in the past, I was just going at it with handheld weed eaters and like an old push mower that I didn't care if it got tore up and stuff. It was way too much fucking work because problem was I could never get it all cleaned off in a season. Which, of course, I was working during this time and other stuff, so it wasn't like I was working on it full time. Apparently, that spot right there is not at a level to where I can hit it with the implements or something with this tractor. I might have to look at smoothing that out a little bit at some point and replowing it, but it's fine now. You ain't got to be perfect. You ain't got to have every single dadgum inch covered and whatever. So it's fine. But, yeah, I would love to have one of those radio controlled flail mowers. Oh my goodness. I feel like I could probably make a business out of it. Somebody wants a little, I couldn't do like a huge area with it, but somebody's got like a small spot, like maybe half an acre or something that's overgrown, that maybe they want to clean it up and put a garden out or something. Alright, I'll do it for you. I mean, $100, I'll clean it up. I probably wouldn't even charge them that much. Probably something like 50. Sounds a bit more reasonable. Or maybe that would be undercutting myself. I don't know. But yeah, to really do all stuff, I need equipment and tools. If I try to do that shit by hand, I'd probably end up giving myself a damn heart attack or something. Because I am not a spring chicken anymore. I ain't as spry as I once was. I think I'm going to leave this over here too. At least for now. Later I'll get a bigger shed. Of course, I may not play on this save after this video, so who knows. Which I know my videos ain't really been like as long as I stream for. But for some reason it seems like I get tired quicker doing videos than I do streaming. Maybe because I enjoy streaming more than I do making the videos. So the time seems to go by faster. So I don't know. Which is funny because lately it seems like there's been times where the days went by so damn fast. It's like almost missed them by blinking. And then some of them seem like they dragged on for ever. It's funny how the perception of time works. That reminds me, that was a damn video I was going to watch on YouTube here a while back, and then by the time I got done watching the one I was watching, I forgot about it. But there was a video I saw, and in the thumbnail, it was this feller on there, and there was something about how a minute is now 45 seconds, and there's something, was that one something to do with something quantum? I don't know, because I was watching some other ones about these microtubules that they say exist within the brain cells and all, and that a lot of people just say that it's part of the structure of the cell itself or something, but some people think that maybe it has something to do with the quantum world, and that maybe somehow uh, it can sort of tap into like the different quantum forms or what. I forget exactly how they worded it, but because I know at one point there was trying to explain it by talking about photons, how photons act as a wave, and that it's more like uh, a web of possible outcomes until it's observed, and then it becomes like a particle, and a particular outcome happens. And there was something else. There was another experiment they talked about. I think it might have been in the same video. It might have been a different one. But anyway, they was talking about an experiment where they tried to split a photon by having it pass through uh, like a piece of glass, and then as it got halfway through, they somehow instantly turned it into a mirror, which I guess they've got the stuff to do that because it's like the windows and stuff you can get that can turn uh, frosted or whatever. But anyway, and that because when I first saw that before they said what the actual results of what happened was, I sort of expected that it would be because at first he was saying you would expect it to split and have two halves of a photon, but I was like, no, that wouldn't happen because that's not how photons act. Plus, it being a mirror, it would reflect, so I would expect two full photons. The original photon would keep moving in the same direction, and then the second full photon would start traveling in the opposite direction because it was bouncing off of the mirror, which was what I expected. But apparently, no, it did some really crazy, weird shit. But anyway, that stuff's fascinating to me. I don't. There's a lot I have not. I've never studied it like in a class or anything like. But I do watch a lot of videos and stuff about it, and it fascinates the hell out of me. Because there's things that goes on when you get down to that quantum level that are outside of the realm of what you would expect or any sort of normal interaction between matter or uh, full atoms would act. Because of course it's so fascinating. Anyway, to go back to my main point, um, there's some people that think that those microtubules or whatever they are that exist within like your brain cells and stuff could somehow act uh, in a similar way to where they could like tune into the waveforms of, like that. And I don't know, it's kind of weird. But they were also saying that they think that at least the ones that think that that could have something to do with the quantum realm, that could somehow be creating what we understand as consciousness. Uh, I think they even called it quantum consciousness theory or something like that, which is fascinating. And then I saw another video where somebody was talking about uh, how it might be possible to change frequencies of those quantum waves. And I got to thinking, well, if those things act like or tune into some sort of quantum waves, uh, could that possibly explain things like a Mandela effect, or people who see into the future or past, or what if that could have something to do with that? Because I know I have heard of one theory, although I don't know how much I buy into it. Although the way it was explained did kind of make sense. And I don't remember exactly how they explained it, and I'm sure I'll explain it poorly. But it was a theory that when it gets down to the actual uh, meat of time, we perceive it as being linear. But the theory is how it actually exists outside of our observation is not linear, that all times exist in one plane, all at the same time. And it doesn't mean that you could ever travel either forward or backward in time, but that all the times exist in that, and that it could be possible to perceive those other areas of time, but they don't know how you could do that or whatever. But I'm wondering if the microtubules uh, do tune into some sort of quantum level state of the universe or something that's, as of course, it's considered space time. If it needs rolling now, but I ain't worried about it because it's going to get cultivated under anyway. Which, yeah, I do have a cultivator. Excuse me. But what if somehow, like, all this different stuff activates on some sort of different frequency of that quantum soup, for lack of a better word? But what if there are different frequencies? And what if, they talk about multiverse theory. What if each of those universes exist in the same space-time, but just at a different frequency on a quantum level? And what if somehow, if something happened that changed the frequency at which those microtubules, which maybe somehow create your consciousness, what if that could change frequencies and that could cause you to slip between that somehow? And maybe that could actually cause something like a Mandela effect, or what if, or maybe it's just that they bleed over into each other, because there's all those theories about CERN and it creating all this shit, which I don't know how much I buy into that either. At least for now, I'm fairly skeptical about, although there is some circumstantial evidence that I would say is pretty interesting. I'm still skeptical. Though I do believe that the Mandela effect does happen, because I'm one of those people who distinctly remembers there being reports on the news about him passing away in prison in, I believe it was the mid to late 1980s. I could be off on the time. Because I remember it went on for like a few days. They were talking about that. They talked about his life and all he had done, and, you know, a lot of that stuff. And I remember him talking about his wife. What was her name? I'm so terrible with names. I'm also bad about, as I'm talking about something, I'll have somebody's name in my head, and then when I get to the point where I need to say the name, it's suddenly gone from my head. But but yeah, what if that could have something to do? What if that could explain some of the supernatural, like ghost experiences that some people have had? Like, it's interesting. I was watching a video just a few hours ago, and it was one of them, like, uh, it was Slapped Ham that I was watching. And there was one story on there about uh, this couple that moved into this house, and they had another guy living with them as a like a renter or something. Anyway, this was in, I think, later 80s. They said it took place. It was before the internet and all that shit. But anyway, they had this desktop computer they had borrowed from the school that the um, man that was owner of the house with his girlfriend, he had borrowed from the school where he taught. And uh, at some point, these messages started coming through that computer from somebody who at first used a different name and claiming that it was their house and what were they doing there and this and that and the other. Anyway, the guy started messaging back and forth with this entity, yet this computer was not connected to the internet because the internet didn't exist. And then after a little while, the entity then claimed to reveal its true identity and gave its first and last name. And then later research found out that there was a guy by that name in the time frame that entity claimed it was from. Although I don't know if it necessarily lived in that particular house, but I remember it saying something about they did find some evidence that a man with that name existed around that time frame in that area at least. Uh, and then apparently there was a second entity that came through that claimed it was from 2100 and something. And they all three kind of was going back and forth, and then one day it all just kind of stopped. But what if, you know, that could have been some sort of quantum frequency alignment between three timelines with, but I don't know. I doubt it. I think it's probably just bullshit because the guy later wrote a book, so he probably just made it all up. But anyway, just thinking about if it had been 100% true, how could you explain something like that scientifically speaking? But of course, even with that, you still wouldn't be able to explain how the guy from the past, because he claimed that he was communicating through a green box that showed up So, but it's like I say, I'm sure the guy just made all that up because to probably sell his book, but because I like to try to think of stuff like that. How if it's 100% true and accurate the way it's relayed, how could you figure out a way to explain it in a logical, scientific way, which is really the heart of all that anyway, because if you can't explain it that way, how could you ever know if something like that is even possible or real? And I want to know. I love to learn things, so I want to know. I want to know everything. Not really. There's plenty of stuff I do not want to know. But when it comes to, explaining things and stuff like that, I do, I like to know how things work. I like to know what's, beyond what we experience here on Earth. What's in space? What's it like to walk on Mars? What's it like to walk on a planet in another solar system, maybe even another Earth-like planet? What sort of life is out there? What would it look like? What would it act like? How would it be made up? How would it evolve? Uh, but just things like the quantum stuff. Like I say, I want to know more. I like to learn about that stuff. I guess there's not really anything for me to do until that's finished growing. And I'm not sure. Oh, it does say ready to harvest. So I guess it's would be fine to cultivate it in. I keep hitting the button that I would use in GTA to get in the vehicle, but it's a different button in this game. But yeah, I mean, there's other ways to explain some of that stuff. Like, I've heard a lot of people say that the Mandela effect is just like some sort of uh, something similar to fuck, what is it? They call it some kind of psychosis that affects a whole group of people. I forget what the name for it is right now. Uh, and of course, like I say, there's people that's come up with all kind of crazy theories saying that it's CERN opening time portals or swapping people between parallel universes. And well, what if it's a little simpler than that? What if it does have something to do with that sort of quantum frequency thing? And what if it does have something to do with those microtubules found within the brain cells? What if they do resonate at a quantum frequency that's tied to reality in some way, although some would argue that even reality isn't real in the way we think that it is. And there's also those that argue that we're actually living in a simulation, which that's something else that I do look at from time to time is the simulation theory stuff, because a lot of it does kind of make sense. It's like I was talking about, like the thing with the photons where they only seem to exist when observed. So that would be just like with this game here. Looking over in that direction, you can only see so far. But as you go in that direction, the game renders it in, and then you can see it. And so there's a render distance. And it's the same in any game. Uh, trying to think of some of the other aspects of our university that some claim or evidence that it's a simulation. But I can't think of any right now, which it's 15 to 6 in the morning. So I think my brain is starting to go like, nah, bruh. Time to chill. Time to stop thinking about all this stuff. Which my sleep schedule has been screwed up for quite a few days now. So it's been, hell, I think yesterday it was like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning before I ever got to sleep. So I think it was somewhere between 3:30 and 4 when I woke up this evening. I don't remember exactly what time it was. It's like I say, I do tend to sleep better during the day, but it also kind of screws me up because there's a lot of stuff I can't do because I'm asleep during the day, which is the time that stuff has to be done. But you know, which another thing I thought about, and I've actually seen some videos talking about this after I started thinking about it, because I decided to look and see if anybody had made any videos talking about it. Of course there are. Some of them, you know, pretty much seem like the crystal mythic kind of crowds, if you know what I'm talking about, the kind that you can tell that they're just kind of making shit up as they go or whatever. But this whole thing about, like manifestation, manifest your dreams, manifest yourself into that job you want, etc., etc. What if there's actually something to that, but it's got to do with that, the quantum frequency of the microtubules in your brain cells? Like, can that frequency be changed? Can you change it through meditation or whatever? And if you do change it, can that change how you relate to the universe? And can that be done in a way that might change your quote-unquote fortune or luck or whatever the hell you want to call it? Could it be done in a way to improve your health? I have all these questions. And I'm sure many other people have a lot of these questions. Some people with enough brains and money or influence to be able to actually answer those questions. Whereas me, I'm just sitting here kind of speculating and then looking up information on the internet, which may or may not have any validity, and trying to make up my mind from that as to what makes sense and what doesn't, and what could actually have validity and what's just complete bullshit, which ain't always easy to do, especially if you got somebody that knows how to talk shit. Yeah, all that kind of stuff just fascinates me, and I want to know more about it. And in time, I'll learn more about it. I'll look up more stuff about it, and try to figure it out. Of course, you know, I have those times, like I say, like I feel like I'm getting towards now to where my brain is just like, nah, bruh, I'm out. You on your own today, bruh. And then I have those days where it seems like I can't remember shit from one minute to the next. But yeah, I think, you know, and how would you even go about researching that in a scientific way? How would you even detect that shit? What kind of equipment would you need to invent to even be able to test such a thing? Which, when I heard that about them splitting a photon in half, that kind of blew my mind when I first heard it. Anyway, I was like, how the fuck? As small as a photon is, how the fuck could you see that and time that so perfectly to be? I mean, maybe they didn't. Maybe they just tried it a million fucking times until they actually got it right. But that could very well be the possibility, and it's probably most likely. Because when you really think about it, I mean, a lot of scientific discoveries have come about from the failure of an experiment or from something unexpected. It's like some unexpected side effect that happened during an experiment or something. It's But I've always kind of been like that because even as a kid, I kind of like taking things apart and putting them back together to figure out how they work. I mean, hell, that's how I learned to work on a lot of stuff. Like, that's how I learned how to fix small engines, big engines. That's how I learned to fix a few electronics. Uh, and then eventually it's how I learned to do a bunch of other stuff. Like, when it comes to doing the software stuff with computers, I'm better than a boomer, but I'm not as good as somebody 20 years younger than me when it comes to figuring that shit out. But now you hand me a box full of parts that was once a computer, I can figure out how to put it back together and make it work. Because I'm good with the mechanical stuff. Not so good. Now, I'm not saying I couldn't learn, although at my age it has gotten harder to learn things. But it's still possible. It would just take a bit longer and a bit more repetition before it would stick in my brain the way I'd want it to. Oh, look. It got rid of that other stuff. I'm going to have to run the stone collector over this too. Which is fine. That just adds more stone to the pile that later I might turn to limestone. Might not be enough to not have to buy it, but it might, you know, save me a little bit of money on it anyway. And early on in this game, that a little bit could mean a lot. Oh, which when I did that GTA 5 video recently, I know what I was talking about. I was saving up for a mansion and all. I got the mansion. So now I'm saving up because I wanted to move that salvage yard to a different location because the entrance is was so horrible. And I'm gonna look at buying some of the other businesses and stuff. But anyway, yeah. Looks like I got a couple more passes here. And the cultivating will be done. And that should add at least one state of fertilization to the ground. So I think a default is set to 2 stages of fertilization. Which you can change that too. I think you can change it to where you only need 1. But yeah, I do plan to kind of look more into all that stuff. Which another thing I still need to try to dig more into and get figured out is the multi-streaming with the Rumble Studio. Although I saw another or I can't remember now. I either heard another VTuber talking about it on their stream or I saw him post something about it on social media. But anyway, it's about another way that I might be able to do multi-streaming if I want to. That I still need to look into. As I don't know if it would work with any platform or whatever. But which I'm guessing regardless if I was going to do it on Rumble, I would still need my stream key, and that's the part I'm having trouble with, trying to get my stream key to work and all that. But I don't know, I'll look more into it, or I'll ignore it for a while, and maybe they'll change it to make it easier. Because it would be nice if all of the platforms would just, I don't know if it's on their end or OBS's end or what, but if you could just do all of the different platforms like you do Twitch on OBS, where you just pick it from the drop down menu and it just works, that would be so nice, because then I wouldn't have to try to rack my brain to figure out how to work it, when I could be trying to wrap my brain about quantum frequencies in your brain cells that maybe give you the winning lottery numbers. Which, of course, that's bullshit, but you know what I'm getting at. But anyway, I think I'm going to stop this video here, because I don't really like to run these videos as long as my streams. I know, videos tend to do better when they're shorter or whatever. Although I've seen some longer videos that tend to do pretty well, and I don't have no problem watching longer ones. But, what they say about attention spans and all that bullshit. But anyway, so yeah, since I'm at a good stopping point, both in conversation and farming, I'm just going to stop it here for now. Oh, look at all the little red dots where the stones are. Looks like a piece of bubble gum or something. Anyway, don't matter. Yeah. So, thank y'all for watching. I appreciate it. I hope y'all have a good one. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.